on the breast, I have to say, is Melanie Klein's theory of the good breast and the bad breast. And she said that a little baby was like too unsophisticated to cope with good and bad in its mother. So it labelled one breast the good breast and one the bad breast. Well, a old cobbler's that, isn't it? So I worked out it was true, because the other day, that one helped an old lady across the road. And then that one turned around and pushed her under a bus.
Before the advent of alternative comedy, female comedians were about as rare as a straight vicar. There was Marty Kane, Victoria Wood, Faith Brown and Jeanette Cranky. Exactly 3.5. This dearth of women comics had nothing to do with lack of talent, rather of opportunity. Traditional comedy was a man's world. If you didn't have a penis, you simply weren't funny. Eddie Large, for instance, had an enormous one, called Sid Little. This prejudice reduced women to stereotypical supporting roles. Basically, they were either birds or battle axes, dressed in bikinis or matron uniforms, respectively. So it was high time for a revolution. It was time for an alternative comedy.
I took this girl out, this big fat bird, took her out on a date, you know. She was dead fat. She was dead eager, like. She turned up in a wedding dress.
There were no women executives commissioning programmes, no female writers.
I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts.
Oh, you certainly have, my love, you certainly have.
The standard fodder for most TV shows, variety shows that you'd sit around and watch with the family was the old working men's club stuff.
Well, as you can imagine, we're going really well for the first 6 months. Until one day I looked at her and it suddenly dawned on me that she was a right ugly cow.
Guys in velvet jackets and fully fronted shirts doing jokes about mother-in-laws. That was basically what stand-up comedy was then.
Each and every bloom tells a story and spells a secret message of love from the heart. But there's still a few left for a nice little display for the mother-in-law.
For the old comics, I think at one time probably the mother-in-law jokes were pretty valid, because after the war, young couples had to move in with their in-laws.
I just thought there was a knock at the door. I knew it was the wife's mother because the mice were throwing themselves on the traps. The wife said, "How would you like to speak to Mummy?" I said, "Through a spiritualist."
If observational comics were talking then, they probably would be, the man would be moaning about, I've got to live with the wife's mother because we can't find a house, everywhere's been bombed, or that kind of thing. But it's just that when something gets so stylised and doesn't really mean what it used to mean anymore, then it's kind of dead, really.
Don't you dare talk about my mother like that. She's sacred.
She would be if she was in India.
Probably the feminism of the 70s kind of laid the groundwork for women to feel that they at least had a right to get out and compete with men in a number of different arenas, and I think comedy was definitely one of them.
I was so determined not to be the gal, the butt of the sexual joke. I started off as a dancer. I'd done sort of end of the pier type shows in Blackpool with Les Dawson, and I did Panto a Little and Large, you know, very conventional comics.
Come on then, wave something!
Why me?
Because you're the only one that's wearing something white.
Les Dawson was extraordinary though, and he said to me, you know, you don't want to just be a dancer, you're funny, you know, you should try and do stuff. And I said, what can I do, Les? I said, what is there on TV that I could do? I can't be a Benny Hill girl, I haven't got big breasts.
Oh, all right then.
Women felt that they were able to stand up and say, no, we actually don't want to be portrayed like this. This is not an accurate portrayal.
Really, Cyril, you and your war games.
I think that the proliferation of new comedy really helped that, and what happened was women started writing their own material and started actually saying, this is how I want to be portrayed.
What sort is yours?
Scotty. Oh, look, he knows what we're talking about. He said, looks like
What alternative comedy did is it sort of took a form, it took a traditional form.
Dad, what's a transvestite? Ask your mum, darling. She knows.
Explain, George.
And infused it with a sort of a political ideal. And often it was innovative in the way that people actually performed, in the way that they connected with the audience.
Women have got two types of knickers. The first type are black, made of lace and the size of an atom. The second type are grey, the size of Buckinghamshire. And you have to spray a hell of a lot of Charlie on them before you can wear them anywhere.
There was definitely, in the early 80s, a sense of women coming into their own. And I remember there was a period of one Christmas where everybody gave each other books about feminism and, you know, how to live your life and how to express yourself. And it was at Greenham Common, and there was a real sense of the women coming out and getting together and the sisterhood and all that stuff. And I think that was a very genuine emotion, I think. It sounds a bit naff, probably, to a lot of people now, but it was great to feel part of a club at that point and to feel you belonged somewhere.
I loved you, but you left me. You steaming bag of shit.
I suppose what I did when I started was, it was a very simple idea, which was just to take the kind of jokes that men have been doing about women for decades and just do a reversal of it.
I saw this programme the other day on the television, and this TV compere comes out into the audience, right? And he sits on this woman's lap and he fondles her tits. And it's really funny, you know. So I thought maybe if I came out tonight and sat on someone's lap and maybe fondle them a bit, you know, it'd be really funny. It's not really, is it? No, okay.
The point about 1982 was that we were all crap. Everybody was crap.
Ask the women of the world. Ask the women of the world. Ask the women of the world. Ask the women of the world.
We all banged on about, you know, our boyfriends and our sex lives, and I think that was just something we had to get through. We sort of had to get that off our chests, if you'll pardon the pun.
And I always get Derek a Big Mac, a large French fries and a chocolate milkshake. Sometimes I get him 2 Big Macs, 2 French fries, 2 chocolate milkshakes. And Derek says he doesn't want, and I say, Derek, you don't know yourself.
I can't tell you how much absolute crap there was around. But there was a lot of very bad poetry for a start, and then there was quite a lot of mime.
Feminism was also useful in that, you know, nobody would have dared say you can't do it, you know, women aren't funny.
What would it take to understand the fragile passion of a self-destructive, bitter little man?
We didn't really have any reference points and any way of developing what we were doing other than just learning on our feet and making it up as we went along.
Are there any women here remember their first period? Yes?
I think I'm right in saying that I did one of the first routines about periods.
It's called the curse. The devil's curse.
The big taboo subject was anything to do with menstruation, basically. And I think that that's something that with the alternative comedians, when they started, the women particularly, perhaps felt that they had to confront.
Truth is, when women have their period, we're so busy playing volleyball in white shorts, we don't give a toss. What's happening?
At the time, that was absolutely fine because no audience had listened to a woman being funny on stage about periods before.
I haven't said anything about periods yet, have I? And I'm sorry, but being a female comic, it's in my contract. I have to talk about them.
After a couple of years of thinking, enough with that periods, enough with the sanitary towel jokes, you know, there's only so many you can do.
Jenny LaCote got very sick of the role she was meant to be. I remember sort of like she wanted to drop it and she didn't know quite how not to be so cross.
Good morning, Britain. It's 8 o'clock.
Oh, you sexist pig. Morning, Wincy.
Dawn and Jennifer were very sympathetic to political causes, women's causes. I mean, I think that, you know, God, many a night I'd see them leave the rehearsal room and go off and do some benefit in a tent on Clapham Common in the pouring rain and then have mean things written about their physicalities by Time Out and stuff. And I just think, God, you're so giving to all this.
Okay, Jennifer, fallout. Chief. Yes, Chris?
We know what I'm trying to say, don't we, Candice?
And I'm still tonguing.
I remember being a bit hurt by criticism from Spare Rib, who I thought, you know, who I used to buy, and I thought I was, you know, kind of in with it all, and they criticised us for maligning women.
Look, can we just have it off, please?
I beg your pardon, Amanda.
No, I didn't.
Let's be friends.
And it was, you know, a feminist as seen by other women, not by some sexist middle-aged writer on a, you know, variety show on ITV.
Oh, men? You're talking about men?
Yes,
Is that what you mean, men?
I'm referring, Jennifer, to the dangly bits like this. If you see anything like this tonight, don't touch it, I'm going to draw you something, Jennifer. And if you see anything that even vaguely resembles this tonight, call the police immediately, OK?
Men don't do characters that are particularly pro-men, that are fantastically well-rounded, generous, kind individuals that are bright and clever. You know, that's not what comedy's about.
I filled in the eyes and the mouth for you, Amanda.
We're trying to do flawed, vain, pompous monsters. That's what makes us laugh. You know, if we're doing them and we're women doing them, then so be it.
I played a compulsive liar, Candice, who was an ex-bunny girl.
Jen, I've got some pennies for the box. Can I just...
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Candice,
Oh,
that's
it was
right,
such
yeah.
a good name,
You see, she managed to get a character together.
Well, she
at
was
least.
a professional, actually.
Yeah, and we
used to
weren't.
be friends with her.
And Ruby was the brash, vulgar American, very spoilt, and her dad had sent her to the Bud something acting school in Beverly Hills.
My name's Shelley DuPont. Hi, my father's in sausages.
The writing procedure was that we would go to Ruby's house and whoever spoke up got a line. You know, Jennifer fell asleep for quite a lot of the writing day. But for whatever reason, she wasn't really awake quite often. So when she woke up and just said something and then went back to sleep, her character turned into a sleepy, dozy twit.
What you have on your face, Jennifer, is man-bait, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
In each one of us, that character still lurks.
How dare you say that?
Somewhere in you there's an Amanda.
Please say that's not true.
Not so deep down in me as a Jennifer. There's certainly a Shelley still lurking in Ruby.
That's the most terrifying thing you've ever said.
And Tracy had to go to America to deny that she was...
Laughing at yourself is what British people do. That's what Dawn and Jennifer are so good at.
Somewhere between crap and mediocre lies French and Saunders.
I'd have really liked to have seen them operate live because I really like that sort of best friends on stage. I think best friends, it's a really sort of rare, it's not a rare relationship because most women have a best friend, but it is usually the funniest relationship you've got.
Would you like to know what I'm doing this weekend?
No.
I'm going to stay with my boyfriend.
We do laugh a lot, you know, really sort of schoolgirly, that very hot giggling that you do. And I think they captured that, French and Saunders.
Does your mum know? Yeah. She doesn't know his parents are going away, though.
I admired the fact that they could just make a stupid face, really, and get laughs on it, and I was kind of quite envious of that.
Cool, eh? Yeah, that Gwyneth down the pub knows how to stuff a turkey, don't she?
We were discussing how funny it was when great big fat men who booze in the corner of the pub think that you should be grateful and a bit flattered when they give you, you know, a wink and make comments.
Look at this one. Look at this one.
Oh, she slid down my chimney any time.
Oh, you're telling me, eh? She's got a lovely couple of Christmas puddings on her, that one.
What's the best fun about doing the men is actually chatting up the women on the set. Being in character with the padding on and everything and pinching the bums of our makeup artist.
I tell you, there's a real little power to it.
Ooh, she is, but she... Goes like a bunny.
Women have to be more aggressive on stage than perhaps they might do normally. If you look at someone like Jenny Eclair...
Fuck off!
When she started out doing comedy, she used to sort of do little songs on the guitar and little poems.
Now Nev's had surgery and lots of skin grafts from his buttocks. You've got to laugh. He's the only man I know between you, me and him to have authentic bum fluff sprouting on his chin.
And then somewhere along the line, she transformed into this sort of raging harridan.
I am Snogwoman!
Jenny Eclair is not totally me, because I'd be dead by now if I lived by her rules 24 hours a day. I wouldn't ever get up. I wouldn't do anything, really. I mean, she'd just always be recovering. She's always just sort of one step away from resuscitation, really.
But I single-handedly drank 38 bottles of wine. It's not possible. It's not humanly possible. Of course I didn't. What actually happened was I drank 35 and spilt 3.
I'm not allowed to do her in certain places. I mean, because I've got a 9-year-old daughter, I'm not allowed to do her on the school steps and in supermarkets.
Anyway, I can't have any more kids because I've had my tubes tied. Not on purpose. Spent a night with a balloon modeller.
When I started, I was sort of just dollying about, just not getting anywhere. And then all of a sudden, 2 women came on the scene, and there were such kicks up the butt for me. Jo Brand and Hattie Hayridge. Hattie was sort of just doing this very sort of dazed performance.
My parents were married 20 years before they had me. They used to have a Cocker Spaniel. Took them a while to adjust. They used to try and peg my ears together when they fed me.
And then Jo would just sort of lumber onto the stage and claim it as her own, you know. And it was just this sort of kind of, this is my space, I've come here to do this.
Thanks. I'm just going to start, actually, by moving the microphone stand, because you won't be able to see me otherwise, will you? Here I am. When I first started, I did sound like I was announcing the football results, because I was so nervous that my voice was a complete and utter monotone, you know. People still say to me, Jo, you're not exactly anorexic, are you? People used to sort of make jokes about it and call me kind of Chelsea 4, West Ham 1 brand. Well, I'm not so sure, because anorexic people look in the mirror and think they look fat. And so do I. If I think of a fat joke which people will laugh at, I won't not do it because the papers say fat jokes are boring. I'll just think I'll bugger it and do it, and it gets a laugh, and I think, yeah, great, it's got a laugh, that's another minute of me act done before I can get off. What I really hate is I hate these women that come up to me and go, ooh, I went up to 8 stone at Christmas, I looked hideous. Piss off, my Christmas turkey weighs more.
If there's a load of women at a bus stop, they're less likely to tell a joke than tell somebody that they've just had a hysterectomy. Women tend to go for that sort of, it all comes from the guts. We spill our guts, really messy people.
My daughter resents me. She resents me after what she did to my vagina. Labia like spaniel's ears, darlings. Labia like spaniel's ears. This is me running, you know.
There was a theory I heard that was current in the 80s that a joke, a one-liner, reenacts a male orgasm.
It's like men like to get to the point. You know what I mean? They do the setup, they do the punchlines, thank you very much, and off they pop, you know, to bed or whatever. And women like to go around the houses. So I just moved house, and it's not actually my house. I haven't bought a house. I'm not grown up enough to buy a house. You know what I mean? I just get pissed and leave it somewhere. I can't... Do you know what I mean about that, not being grown up enough? I'm 35, but, like, I just never... My definition of a grown-up is a woman who can wear clip-on earrings without crying. You know, 'cause... So they've got this set-up line, and they've got the punchline over here. But I like to take a little A-road and go, oh, which reminds me. But I don't feel grown up a lot of the time. Have you ever hired a car? It's a piece of piss. You go in, you give them a bit of plastic, and they give you keys to a brand new car, and your dad's not there or anything. So I'm a bit stupid like that, but I've got this new house.
I think it's very difficult to talk about comedy in terms of gender and the differences of comedy in terms of gender, I think it's kind of dangerous territory, really. It's impossible to say whether women have a different approach to comedy than men. Everybody has an individual approach to comedy.
Yes! I do know what death is.
Historically, women tended to do more kind of character-based observational material, whilst men were more likely to do sort of standard traditional jokes.
They say if they want you in heaven, and if they didn't, then you would have to go with the devil.
In a way, a woman coming on and doing a character, putting her comedy in the mouth of somebody else, as it were, was somehow more acceptable than a woman coming on and saying, this is what I think, this is what I do.
What I wanted to do was not be a funny woman. I wanted to be a funny person. I felt that was really, really important. I didn't want to get the women laughing and not the men. I mean, I thought that was my main aim. I think the whole point of drink is it's supposed to taste vile, isn't it? That's the price you pay for puking in gutters and showing your arse, isn't it? Or if you're a girl crying for 3 hours in a pub toilet. Because that's what girls do best. There's always 3 girls needed for that, isn't it? One girl to cry and say, it's a fucking person! And 2 behind to go, it's not worth it! It's too naughty! That's one of the great things that's been freed up, is that, yeah, women are as stupid as men are, if not more so.
For some reason, men like those little squiggly, femmy, just jiggly women, don't they?
So when women started saying stupid cow, it actually sort of, freed everybody up. I mean, like, using words like cow and slag or tart and things like that doesn't mean anything like it used to.
These women are stupid. You know the women who do this are just stupid. Well, figure it out. You do this long enough, it's bound to mess you up. Come on.
Over the years, people have always said, oh, well, there's more women coming through this, but it's not true, to be honest. If you ask female comics now, mostly, if they do a show, they'll be the only woman on the bill. Nearly always. Very rare you get more than 2. If you get 3 women on the bill, then it must be a woman's day.
My first lot of friends all got married after school, all went off. And after school, I just mean 18, not 4 o'clock.
Women comics were kind of put in this category of speciality acts, really, because there were so few of them. And because they were thought of as like, ooh, you were like given the idea of a visual act. It didn't matter what you said, people would stare at you. So you get phoned up and they say, can you do this night? Because I've got 3 comics and I either need a woman or a juggler.
There is a frisson in the audience when a woman gets on stage that there possibly isn't, or there possibly wasn't when a man got on stage, that the audience have a certain fear. Because they're not as used to seeing women on stage, they're going, is she going to be as funny?
And when I was a student nurse, we had quite a lot of complex assessments to do on people, for various different psychiatric illnesses. And we had one when I was a student called the Beck's Depression Inventory, right, which I'd never heard of, which had been shortened to the BDI. Audience expectations of women are very low, so that you almost have to be twice as funny as your male counterpart when you go out there to equal their performance, if you like. And I went onto the ward one day, and the sister said to me, can you just pop into the lounge and give Mr. Simpson the BDI, right? And there's not only men that think that, women think that as well. I've heard women in the toilets at the Comedy Store saying, oh, there's a woman on next, she'll be crap. I went off into the lounge, found Mr. Simpson, and went, yeah.
Basically, what would happen is that if I'd remembered to put on some earrings and some lipstick, people would shout, F off, you ugly old cow. And if I'd forgotten to put on lipstick and earrings, people would shout, F off, you ugly lesbian old cow.
Femme fatale. Mind that, which is like, no, actually I'm not a spinster, I'm a femme fatale.
I think a lot of the women comics are very down to earth. So they know if there's anything about them, they've got to take the mick out of themselves before the audience does. Because the audience are just going to go immediately like hounds for the kill.
Now, the other thing you might have noticed about me is that I'm a bit of a fashion goddess, really, aren't I? I always thought that the best approach to take was to put yourself down more than anyone else was going to. Get it in first. I fall into that group of women who are euphemistically labelled by the fashion industry as revolting obese lepers. And then if someone says, get off, you fat cow, you just go, look, I've been saying that about myself for 10 minutes. What's the point of you doing it? And the thing about people that go to health farms is that they don't actually need to, because they're emaciated even before they get there. Get off! Thank you.
When I do get heckled, I like it. I was once said, never be afraid of a heckler. Never assume that heckler is more clever than you are. So if they get one out, if you manage to get one back, they haven't got another line prepared.
Oh, there's another one! I used to take this little stick round with me called a wife leader, which they used kind of 100 years ago in Jamaica to put on women's fingers and lead them around so you didn't kind of nip off to the shops. And what I used to do is hold it up at various gigs and say, what do you think that is? Just to kind of try and get them to contribute a bit. And I held it up in Cambridge and some woman down the front said, is it a cassava juice extractor? Right, and I don't even know what a cassava is. But they are posh like that in Cambridge. Whereas the next night I was in Liverpool and I held it up and said, what's that? And some bloke shouted out, fat bird with a stick, which, was just brilliant.
Get a photo totally out of focus. It's got a sticker on it saying, out of focus. Oh, thanks. I thought I got cataracts there for a minute. Some women have a go at it and then give up after the first time. Most women never have a go at it and don't have any desire to, so fair enough, really. Imagine one day you get your wedding photos back with a sticker on saying, Christ, you haven't married this tosser. I think they'd rather be in something that's more glamorous, either in modelling or acting or singing. Comic is still a bit of the toilet cleaner of the arts, really.
Have you tried that Retsina? It's a Greek wine. It's made out of pine cones. It's just like disinfectant. It's brilliant. Means you can throw up and clean the toilet at the same time.
You have to grow another skin. I mean, I've had to sort of grow the hide of a rhinoceros because I think women take criticism very badly. I certainly do. I still do. It makes me feel sick.
And they say, don't they, inside every fat person there's a thin person trying to get out. Yes, that's because we've just eaten one, all right? What happens is a man has 5 bad gigs. He thinks it's the audience's fault. A woman has 5 bad gigs and she thinks it's her fault and gives up. I'm sorry, blokes, but you are like that.
But it's nice being a woman, though. I'm a woman. You've probably noticed that since I've been a woman, my body's changed. What, you're fatter?
We now have a number of women who are just going out and doing what they think is funny and with a real kind of conviction, and that is gaining a huge mainstream audience, and that's a really it's a really positive place for women to be, and that they don't have to be ghettoised anymore. And I think there's a huge difference in terms of what people do, in terms of what Jo Brand does, Carolina Hearn does, Victoria Wood does, Jennifer Saunders does, Dawn French does, I think. And those are just a handful of very, very notable women who've kind of emerged in the last 10 years. I think it's now, they're an argument for just saying, people are funny, regardless of sex.
Ah yes, sex is bound to rear its ugly head sometime. Of course, the way we talk about sex has become much more liberated. Subjects such as masturbation, oral sex and Dale Winton are now openly discussed, a trend reflected and, who knows, perhaps prompted by alternative comedy. Alternative comics rejected the tired sexual euphemisms of traditional comedy. No longer would there be talk of Mrs. Slocum's pussy. It would now be called by its proper name, Mrs. Slocum's cat. And next week we'll be looking at the slightly touchy, not to say feely subject of sexual politics. Still the only politics where we all like to vote at least 3 times a week. And at alternative comedy's part in creating a more PC world.
Mrs. Thatch, Mrs. Thatch. A little bit of politics, little bit of politics, little bit of politics.